put pressure on, we raised awareness of these issues, we've gotten a lot of support, and it works. This is just the first of what we hope will be a number of campaigns to improve conditions for folks.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
We have on the line now Lance Ingwerson, a member of the United Campus Workers at Jacksonville State University. Lance, thank you for taking the time to talk to us this morning. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jacob. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Adam.
Absolutely. So why don't you, just introduce yourself and, what do you do at Jacksonville State? What's your job, and, how did you get that job? Did you grow up around Jacksonville State?
Sure. I'm happy to answer those. I'm currently an associate professor of history at Jacksonville State. I'm also the campus co-chair for our chapter of United Campus Workers. No, I grew up in the Atlanta area, so I am familiar with the region, not the specific place, and then moved around a lot. Have lived kind of all over the country, out of the country, and came back here in 2019 to take this job.
Gotcha. So what is the United Campus Workers? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so we are part of the umbrella of the Communications Workers of America. We're public sector union employees. And United Campus Workers operates in 13 different states currently, mostly in the U.S. South. So Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia. But we've also, there are also United Campus Workers chapters in Colorado, Arizona, a very recent one in Utah, and in Wisconsin as well. So that's the structure of how we're organized. Currently, we're organized as statewide locals, but that is in the process of changing. We're going to basically create one big Southeastern local for at least all the locals that are in the Southeast. We're doing that for a few different reasons, administrative and otherwise. But yeah, so United Campus Workers started about 20 years ago. It started at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and it was an effort there to unionize as workers. And then in the 2010s, maybe mid 2010s or so, they did a bigger push outside of Tennessee. And so United Campus Workers came to the state of Alabama in 2019 at University of Alabama, and then in 2020 at Auburn. And then we officially started our chapter, I guess, in maybe late 2021, but we didn't launch publicly until last year, August of 2023.
Right. And that's an interesting geographical boundary, because we're seeing across, the West, the Midwest, and the Northeast, huge wins at universities for unions, huge blowout election victories. But what we're seeing in the South is kind of an interesting situation, because, in a lot of the South, and including in Alabama, there's no provision in the law for collective bargaining as such, as it is typically done. And so where unions like, the UE or the UAW or the SEIU, where they have kind of largely just left those jurisdictions alone, there's not a lot of activity as far as I can see in universities where there are no collective bargaining. There is no collective bargaining set up. The United Campus Workers has kind of filled in that gap where the typical process of collective bargaining is not allowed to happen, but still, there is a place for unions and unionism and collective action. Can you talk to us about that dynamic, being a public sector union in an area and in an occupation where there is no provision in the law for a union election or a collective bargaining agreement?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Jacob. That was something that I wanted to talk a little bit about. So, we've seen a lot of movement recently in the private sector, and the public sector operates quite differently. This might be something that is familiar or unfamiliar to the listeners. In the public sector, we don't have collective bargaining. You're right. We don't have all the tactics available to us. It's against state law for us to strike, and in the state of Alabama. And so what we do in the public sector is it's called pressure organizing. And so our job is to come together collectively. It's to try to really raise awareness around issues and sort of ratchet up the pressure on our employers to do better by their employees. And so that's one of the big differences between public sector and private sector. We in the private sector, you have to sort of file for a union election. You've got to have 50% plus one in order to create a chapter. We don't have those requirements. So in some ways, it's a little easier in the public sector to get started. But it is really hard to keep going in the public sector because of state laws.
Right. Because, you have to really be continuously making the case that this is a worthwhile investment of money, sure, in dues, but even more than that, time, right? You have to be continually making the case that it is worthwhile for people to involve themselves in this activity. And so, on that note, what are some of the things that you as the United Campus Workers at Jacksonville State are doing to try to, improve your lives and the lives of your coworkers?
Yeah, so we're engaged in a campaign. So we, like I said, the first members joined back in late 2021. We worked for almost probably a year and a half to get things structured in a way that we could be prepared for a public launch, which we did in August of 2023. And that's been really successful. Our membership has more than doubled since then. And over the course of the fall of 2023, we worked with the members to develop a campaign. And we launched that first campaign in January of this year. And that campaign is around hourly workers on campus. And so the idea is we've got hourly workers who are paid really, really poorly. Student workers start at $8.25 an hour. Housekeepers start at $9.09 an hour. Groundskeepers start at $10.50 an hour. And so that's our sort of range for our hourly workers. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was to really try to put pressure on the university to increase minimum pay for hourly workers to $15 an hour, which we see in our local area even, when you're out looking for jobs in the Jacksonville area, even at the local school systems, they're at $15 an hour. And so we're trying to get the university to at least match that. And so, we started that campaign in January with an open letter to the president and the CFO of the university. And then we launched a petition. We got about 700 signatures on that petition so far. We delivered that in person to the president's office, along with comments that signers included there. And we've held some tabling events and other kinds of events on campus just to try to raise awareness that we have a union, that it's open. We're a wall-to-wall union, so it's open to undergraduate and graduate student workers, staff, faculty, full-time, part-time. That's the campaign we've been engaged in. And we had we had some really a good first step news that happened earlier this week. The Board of Trustees voted on a proposal for a one-time pay increase for most all employees at the university. More is going to folks who make less. Less is going to folks who make more. But that was in our mind, that was a good first step. The CFO asked the board for about $1.5 million extra in budget to be able to cover that. And then she said that she is planning to go back to the board in October with a proposal for permanent increases for staff and faculty on campus. And so we're optimistic, we're hopeful, but we're going to keep the pressure on. Obviously, they're not always great at being transparent about how they're developing that proposal and what that proposal is going to look like. So we've got to be ready in the event that the proposal that gets that appears to the board or that gets to the board is really favorable to the workers and actually meets the demands that we have.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Right. How has what has been the reaction from your coworkers and the community around Jacksonville State to this campaign? And is there recognition, particularly among your coworkers, that this push for the one-time raise and then the potential for a permanent wage increase is derivative of the union's campaign?
We're still trying to figure that out. That's a great question. The initial signs are positive. People know that we're around because we've got members across the university, and they talk to their coworkers, even coworkers who haven't joined the union yet. And the sense is initially we were met with some skepticism about, this is just another thing that's not going to work. And so now it's our job to communicate that, look, we did this, we put pressure on, we raised awareness of these issues. We've gotten a lot of support, and it works. And so we're hoping that we're going to be able to use this to draw in more members, expand our membership, and then hopefully prepare for upcoming campaigns. This is just the first of what we hope will be a number of campaigns to improve conditions for folks.
We're in a climate right now in Alabama where the business and political class are going on really an unprecedented assault in the media, at least, on the UAW in particular, but unionism in general, even as a poll came out showing that 52% of Alabamians support the UAW's campaign at Mercedes and Vance specifically, but have any local officials or state officials from your area reacted to this campaign negatively? Have you gotten any pushback from state representatives or the local chamber or anything like that?
Not that we know of. I think one of the things that we were not expecting, because this has been the case for United Campus Workers in other places too, we're not expecting a response or like a direct response from the university. I think they've banded together and they've decided that the best way to treat this effort is just to try to ignore us. So I think we kind of expected that. We were able to get a response about 4 months later, and the president told us in a meeting of faculty of one of the colleges that the university was not planning to engage us. He said that there are avenues that exist already for us to engage, but one of the things that we've done is kind of blown up those silos. We're grouped by classification at the university, so they like to treat staff as staff. They like to treat faculty differently as faculty. They like to treat students. And one of the things that our union's doing is kind of busting those divisions up in a good way. It's really it's making progress. So we're not expecting responses from them, but we're seeing action, and that's ultimately what we want more than anything.
Right. And like you said, it's going to be really important for you to make the case that the action that they're taking is connected to the pressure that you're putting on them. You mentioned that there are United Campus Workers chapters at UA and Auburn. How closely are y'all in coordination on these campaigns to raise wages and deliver other benefits to working folks at these universities? I know that they have similar campaigns at their universities. What kind of coordination goes on between your groups across Alabama?
Yeah, the leadership of each of the chapters is in constant communication, and so I'm familiar with the folks who are leading the efforts at Auburn and at Alabama. We do talk. We try to strike the balance between coordinating efforts versus making sure that we're covering things that are unique to our campuses. Alabama and Auburn both were able to get minimum wage increases on their campus for their campus workers to $15 an hour. And so their fight is now to move even beyond that. So I know at Auburn, they're working on a $17.50 minimum wage. They've got a petition going now. At Alabama, they're trying to push for a $20 an hour minimum wage. And they've kind of grouped their demands in this most recent petition. I know at Alabama, they want a $5,000 cost of living increase across the board for every single worker on campus. And at Auburn, they're working on another COLA increase, and then things related to graduate worker stipends. So I think the track that both of those campuses are taking right now is to group their demands together, which is a little different from the campaign. We've decided to really focus our campaign on hourly wages for workers. But yeah, we're in constant communication. We've got a board between all the different chapters, and we have members outside of those universities that just haven't formed public chapters yet. So we like to hit a certain number before chapters are able to go public. And so we've got members at a number of other universities, but who just don't have large enough numbers yet to form public chapters.
What can people do to support if they're listeners and they don't work at universities? You know, they're community members, they're folks that are listening to this, but they're supportive of your efforts. Is there anything that they can do to help?
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage them to follow us on social media in particular. We've all got Facebook pages for each of the chapters. If they want to join, you can go to ucwal.org. That is the statewide local page, tells you more about the different chapters, tells you how to join. And they can also even contact, if they're out of state. I heard you saying that some of your listeners were listening in from other places. If they're out of state, they can go to ucw-cwa.org. That is the United Campus Workers for all 13 states, and it's got ways to contact each of those individual locals. So beyond that, I think just trying to support. Anytime we have public events, public actions, we'd love to have folks who are not part of United Campus Workers, but who are supporters, just community allies, helping us at those events, spreading word, helping us raise awareness, circulating petitions, really lots of different ways that folks who are not a part of the union can support us in our efforts.
Anything else we didn't touch on that you want to make sure we get to before we let you go?
No, I think it's an exciting time to be a union member in the state of Alabama, in the South in general. There's something happening here. It's nice to be a part of that. And really appreciate shows like this and a lot of the efforts that people are putting in. It's really hard. I was watching the interview that you had with the UAW folks from Mercedes and Hyundai last week, and just like they've just been killing it. I mean, it's great. I've heard their commercials on the radio, other places like that, and just trying to increase our collaboration and communication across the public and private sector unions. There are not many public sector union members in the state of Alabama, largely because of those state laws. And so we're just trying to figure out ways that we can work together to improve working conditions for everyone here in the state.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you, Lance, and appreciate United Campus Workers. Y'all are doing something really important. The public sector is full of opportunity here to organize in Alabama if we get creative, if we're bold enough to do it. And so I appreciate what y'all are doing at JSU, at Auburn, at UA. Like you said, there's members all over. And hopefully, next year we'll be talking to even more chapters of United Campus Workers across the state. So just keep up the good work, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, y'all. We really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.